that's not right, we get up and you change first.
Okay.
It's really important.
All right. You're our MC.
You're our
yes.
MC.
Hey, big man, that's the coolest shirt I've seen all day, by the way. I'm a big Mariner fan. No, I'm being serious. You watching them play the Angels today? 7 o'clock.
You and 3 other people are Mariners fans.
Yeah. Even he gave up on the season. I'm still hanging on. We got a few games left.
Well, welcome. We're sorry they didn't get this seminar publicized better. There was a little snafu in the scheduling, but we're glad you're here. We're going to talk a little bit today about how we built our robots and what it entails, and answer some questions, except for the one like, how much does it cost? Because our wives may see the video later.
Yeah, my wife's 20 miles away and could still hear me if I said.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
says, I
So
just don't
we
say.
may even talk about that. Okay, so we're from the Pacific Northwest. 2 of us are from the Seattle area, and 2 of us are from the Portland area, and 1 of us from the Vancouver area, right?
Yeah.
And we're delighted to be here. We got 3, probably, or 5 really nice droids. These are probably, on the West Coast, very rare to find this many all in one place that are actually working at the same time and finished. So it's kind of fun to be here. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened to us, and then each of us is going to talk about our droid and how we built it. Probably like many of you, I don't know about you guys, but in 1977, I went to the movie theater and saw Star Wars, and I was completely blown away, and I said, I want to build that robot. Now, you guys might not have thought that, but I thought that. And I said, that's on my bucket list to build an R2-D2 before I die. So, like many people, I started collecting information about R2-D2, watched the video 6,000 times, made sketches, bought things like the Star Wars blueprints here, which had some early blueprints of R2, and continued to collect information. These are the R2 blueprints from that old set. And you can see these were some that were actually early production drawings when they first made the movie. And then along came the R2 Builders Club around, I don't know, probably around 2002 or so, somewhere
99.
back in there. When was it?
99.
99.
Oh, yeah.
And a bunch of guys around the world, thanks to the internet, got together and said, we can probably help each other build robots. And some people had access, for example, to the original R2, and these pictures are online at astromech.net. These are pictures of an original R2 with a ruler held up to everywhere, and there's hundreds of pictures like this. So you can get online and go absolutely crazy trying to figure out how many millimeters something is. So we've collected information over the years. Now there's plans online, and there's one of the early prototype R2s with a very young George Lucas. And so now there's plans online. We have plans available. They're free. You can go on there and download them, astromech.net. There was actually several robots built for the original movie. Many people think that Kenny Baker here in the R2 was the only one, but there was actually several operating remote-controlled droids in the first movie. And as the movies went on, they became more and more remote-controlled until the fake movies came out. And then they were CGI, but we're not going to talk about the fake movies. We're going to talk about the real movies and the real droids. So that's where these came from. Again, just tons of information online. Behind-the-scenes look from Empire Strikes Back, which most R2 builders consider to be the quintessential R2s from Empire Strikes Back. Because the first ones, they were kind of thrown together in a minute. They had more money when they did Empire Strikes Back and built nicer robots. So we're gonna talk about individually about the robots that we're building. So we're gonna start with Chris.
That's me. I'm Chris. I'm from Vancouver, Washington. This is my robot right here, my R2. Yeah, can you say hi? I know, it's cool, it never gets old. Okay. So basically, this is actually my second droid that I've built, just because all of us are kind of OCD perfectionists. When you get done, I immediately thought of everything that I would do over again and do better. And these are quite the projects. It took me about 2 years to the day of like hobby hours. It's like my muscle car in my garage, basically. So I'm not working on it constantly, but my free hobby time. The first one that I built, I basically transferred everything over that I wanted to keep and made my second one. So basically, this R2 is new from the neck down. I kept the old dome. And with my original one, I made a R5-D4, which is similar to Vincent's that's over there. I'm just not quite finished with it yet, and only one fits in my car at a time. So that's why I brought this guy. What I like to always tell people is that, and I know these guys probably get tired of hearing it because we just did one last weekend, but we're not special. We're just guys that grew up in the 70s that fell in love with this movie and said, I want one.
I did not grow up in the 70s, for the record.
No? All right, well, but you are the one that's special too, so I'll take that back, with the exception of Cole. And basically, I happened to be down in San Diego for the Star Wars days down there, and I was just like a lot of you guys walking around, and all of a sudden, a real R2 rolled up to me, and I was like, I can't say what I thought. I said, holy crap. You know, I want one. How do I do this? And so basically I was inspired, and that's how this club works, is that we just keep growing in numbers by inspiring each other. And then somewhere in the room right here, there's probably a guy saying that I don't know how, but I'm going to do one of these. And you probably will. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication. I probably read for 6 months before I even started building my droid, because there's 100 different ways to get to the finish line. And even though they all look very similar once they're done, every one of them is a little bit different. And it just depends on what your budget level is, what your skill level is, what you can make yourself versus what you have to have somebody else make for you. Because that's what's really cool about this, is the only way to have one is to make one. You can't go to Walmart, you can't go to the store and buy one. If you could, they wouldn't be as cool as they are, right? So I'm gonna just kind of, we'll skim through this here of my build. Basically, I have a wood frame with an aluminum skins. So you can see the layer of aluminum. These skins are in double layers, kind of like cabinetry. You have an inner layer and an outer layer so that the doors have something to rest on when they close. So that's my wood frame there with the first layer of aluminum skins mounted to that. Our wood frames are typically built out of a birch plywood. It'll cost you about $50, $50 to $80 for a sheet of that, but it's enough wood if you cut right. Measure 3 times and cut once. You can usually get enough to do your legs and your frame in one sheet of plywood. So if you have the skills, a table saw, a router, things like that, you can actually make your frame and legs for under $100. The reason why we use birch plywood, if any of you guys are woodworkers or anything, there's no air pockets in that kind of plywood, and it's a half-inch layer of plywood has about 8 or 9 laminates in it, and so each one of those is a layer of glue, which means they don't warp and they're just rock solid. Okay? So if you do choose to go a wood frame, birch ply is the way to go. The one thing that all of our droids have in common is that we use a rockler bearing to have it spin. It's basically a found part out of a cabinet shop, Lazy Susan. So the same thing that'll spin your TV swivels, same thing that'll spin your Lazy Susan top on your kitchen counters. They happen to have one that fits an 18-inch diameter frame. And we just mount bolts, laser pointer. Oh, there we go. Mount these bolts from the underside coming up, and that dome has holes in the ring, and that just basically slides on and let gravity hold the dome on. That way we can lift it up and down at ease. This is my center leg, the third little tripod leg that sticks out there. That's all layers of wood scraps that were left over from my frame. So each one of these, go back here. That's about probably, I can't remember, at least 5 or 6 layers of that half-inch ply all glued together and then sanded. And then made these out of some scrap wood that I had laying around. These right here are just Home Depot plumbing cylinders with some little caps that I made. So, I mean, there are some ways where you can save money by, you can pay, what is it, about 100-something bucks for some cylinders for aluminum ones, or you can go to Home Depot and buy a $3 stick of a thing and do it yourself. So again, it depends on if you want a Cadillac, you know, and that's just your thing, or if you have the skill to do it yourself. These are actually the first foot shells that I made. These are the shoes, basically, that you see on the outer side. These were made out of laser cut plastic and then put together kind of like a puzzle where all the pieces match up, and then I line the inside with a special glue to kind of seam all that together. I will preface this right away that I'm not a fan of the plastic feet. I've since upgraded to some steel ones because the feet will take a beating. They're the ones that hit the door jams. They're the ones that the kids will kick, and it's just those seams, no matter how much prep I did, will always crack over time. So a little spendier, but going with the metal feet is the way to go there. So then you can see there it is put together before paint. Had to Bondo that curve there because that's a really hard curve to get when you're scratch building. And there's the finished product with all the details on it. I believe this here is a picture of my steel and aluminum ones. So the R2, those are his current ones that are on there before I made them look dirty. This picture I actually stole from Bob. This is his drivetrain, but mine's identical. So I stole your picture. Sorry.
That's all right.
Basically, these are four-wheel drive units on chain drive with MPC motors is what they're called. They're basically like scooter motors or wheelchair. They got some really good torque on them, and they'll get up and go. So that seems to be the motor of choice these days for us is a chain drive drivetrain system with a MPC motor. This is my basically this is my original R2. Part of the things you want to think about when you're building is how you're going to get access to the inside. Mine, I had a cabinetry background, and so I was like, I'm going to make a drawer. So I had a fold-out drawer for my battery and all the electronics and stuff. That's one of the things that I decided to redo on the other one is my skins are all solid now. There's no access, so the only way to get in is to actually remove the whole skins. It was just one of those things that it was a design thing that I thought was better. So you're not worrying about having to that back door either permanently attaching it with screws, and it's harder to get to. I just like being able to have quick access by taking the skin snaps off. Mine has a little toys inside. My R2 doesn't have much room left in there, and so the tools when the doors open, I like that you can see stuff in there. So those won't work, but they're just eye candy, basically. So I've got the gripper arm, and then I've got the little computer CPU arm, they call that. And Bob, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, I started building mine in 2006. Took me about 5 years to build. It weighs 350 pounds, ready to run. Everybody asked me that question. Probably cost me about $15,000. Everybody asked me that question, I may as well tell you. But it took me 5 years to build, so you kind of buy a piece at a time and do a piece at a time, and
I can't believe you said that.
It works out. Yeah, whatever. This is a picture of us at a Microsoft store during the launch of Star Wars for Xbox. I've done a lot of things for Microsoft and LucasArts with my R2, which is kind of fun. This is a picture of a bare, this is the first piece I got, which was a bare aluminum dome, which some guys got together and had drop forged, I think, or spun. And a few of the original pieces that I started with. And there's my dome as it's going together, glued together with JB Weld. Nothing's top secret, like Chris said. It's just a lot of work, and it's a lot of work. There's my dome as it went together. I spent probably 2 weeks just sanding the thing. One of my holo projectors, which is a resin piece, and the original holo projectors were air vents out of a Vickers Viscount airliner, which now you can't buy, because anything that has anything to do with Star Wars just disappears.
Because guys like Cole went and snatched them all
Yeah,
up.
they bought them all, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's my dome with all the pieces put together. My holo projectors are just Brinkmann flashlights from Walmart that are stuck in the back. And there's my dome all lit up. I have about 500 LEDs in my robot. I'm the foot drive guy. That's why Chris stole my pictures. These are pictures of my foot drives before I put together. like you said, it's a wheelchair motor, couple tires, some chain, bits and pieces from small parts. They go together like that, and that's what each foot looks like. Each foot on my robot weighs 45 pounds from the ankle down. That piece right there. So it's almost 100 pounds just for the 2 feet, but it makes him nice and solid, low center of gravity. He's four-wheel drive. The center foot is just casters, so he can pivot in place and back up and moves around pretty good. Mine's adjustable for height, so I can adjust it for his float off the carpet. Mine's all aluminum, not wood, so I have aluminum legs that are welded up pieces of aluminum. They're hollow inside. There's all my feet are steel. My ankles are aluminum. There's one of my legs all painted up. My droid's also powder coated since it's aluminum, so the white parts are all powder coated and the blue parts are paint. And it's not fancy. It's Krylon spray paint with some clear on the top. And I have an aluminum frame, which is very pretty inside. It's too bad you can't see it. It's all anodized blue. There's my robot when he was first standing up before skins. Same thing, I have aluminum skins on my frame. And then there's some pieces as I just got him back from the powder coater. You'll notice that I have a whole bunch of foot drives there because like a lot of the builders, I'm good at some things. I'm pretty good at building foot drives. So I built a whole bunch and then traded them off to other people for pieces that they were good at building, like frames or radar eyes or things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of back and forth in the club doing things like that. There's my powder-coated skins. People ask, how do you build a robot? How do you build it? People don't build stuff anymore. And I says, well, you just build it. And they said, well, what's that mean? I said, well, here's a piece of aluminum with a thing called an aluminum nipper. And you just sit there and you go click, 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 and it cuts out a piece of aluminum. And there's they're actually the little vents on the bottom. And then I bent up a piece of thin aluminum, actually was part of a can, and made the inside, and JB welded it together, and that's how you build it. My electronics were pretty much soldered together. There's some prototyping before I put them in there, and there's my remote right there. And he does all kinds of funny things like, you know, the head moves, and he does, like everybody else's, he talks. And, well, he sometimes talks. Oh yeah, he talks, okay. So everything's just a standard airplane remote. It was a big project. There's my electronics panel, and mine actually folds down, so my access is through a fold-down panel, and my battery sits down inside. It's pretty cool inside. If we have time at the end, we'll have some time to come look at them up front. And he has Bose speakers in there, and here's some things we did. This is something we did at Microsoft for the employees when they were launching the Xbox game, and I got to work with the current C3PO, who's really a cool guy. And there's a picture we took in Seattle a couple years ago at PAX with C3PO. When you walk around with an R2 and a C3PO, you can't move. You have to have bodyguards. It's unbelievable. You get mobbed everywhere. And we hosted a episode of Xbox Live from Microsoft. R2 was a guest host. So I've done a lot of fun things which was kind of cool. Cool.
Cool. My name's Cole Horton. I'm in Seattle now. That's where I live today. This is actually my second droid. I built the red one because I like diversity. And everybody has a blue one, and I want to be a little different. So this is my second droid. I built my first one and this one as well back when I still lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. My first one, I started actually building in my dorm room in college, and then I finally got it done. Took it to a convention, and the club founder was in America. He came all the way from Australia, and I let him drive my droid around. And he drove it into the ground, literally. He actually dumped it over on its face and kind of destroyed it. So I got to build a second droid. And that's what you're seeing here.
That's why none of us will let you touch our controller.
Yeah. So this is my second droid, and on this one I kind of went crazy. Just everything had to be perfect, everything. had to be built like a brick. I had done a number of events kind of all over the country and learned. I really didn't want any of the special features, any of the gimmicks as I call them. I just wanted a droid that would always operate and always stand up to the crowd and people banging on it and climbing on it and pushing it around and that kind of stuff. So that's really kind of how I built mine. So my goal was this droid. This is R2-M5 from one of those new fake movies. This is from episode 1. Blink and you miss him. He was only in a couple of scenes, this red droid, but that was my goal. And so I made sure that every little weird thing about that droid was also weird on my droid as well. To make him as strong as possible, me and my 2 friends who we were building these, we decided that we wanted the entire body to basically be built like a tank. And so rather than take the multiple layered kind of skins that a lot of people use, we started with a single sheet of aluminum. That was the correct thickness. And then we coated the whole thing in oil, that's the picture on the left, and then milled in using a CNC router. Milled in all the details you see. So all those doors are fake. None of those doors open up. So it started as a flat piece of aluminum. We came in and milled in over it. And then we took those flat pieces to a CNC roller. And that actually rolled them around to that perfect 18.2 inch diameter that you see today. We took that and welded it together. So we actually cut some top rings, bottom rings, the skirt, all those other kind of pieces on the body, and we made it one solid chunk, and it's all welded together, so none of it comes apart. That body, you can actually just stand on it if you wanted to. It's that strong.
There's some cool YouTube footage of Cole actually riding his R2.
Yeah.
Standing on it and somebody's remote controlling. It's like a rodeo.
I'll do an R2 ride later after the panel. The other thing is this R2 is totally modular, so all the different pieces kind of come apart and you can work on them separately and they operate separately as well. So all of my electronics are all part of a single modular unit that kind of slides in from the top. That's the part that holds the battery, all the electronics. You can see that there on the left. And then you can see the body, how it all kind of comes together. So that modular piece sits on an aluminum frame that bolts to the aluminum legs. And yeah, we can actually drive the droids as you see it there on the picture in the right. You don't actually have to have the body or the dome on. The dome, we did kind of reinvent the wheel. I don't know why. But to make it this electronic connector. So there's actually just one plug that operates all the dome, runs power up through the body, and just, it's like a magnet. It sticks into place. It can only go one way. And then, you know, lots of welding and hammering and lots of grinding and sanding, and then a auto body paint job later. This is what I ended up with. So there's the comparison, my droid on the left, the big one, and the actual movie droid on the right. So that's me.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Vincent Sanchez. I'm from Beaverton. Actually, originally from Huntington Beach, California. I'm now located in Beaverton. I've got the R5-D4 over there, and he was actually, when I think about it, he was in the film Fanboys, and he was seen in George Lucas's office briefly. I've also got the R2 dome for him, so I transform him into R2-D2, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Lucasfilm on several events. One of them was a Samuel Jackson special put on by AMC. George showed up with a host of, I think, like a dozen celebrities, which was a tremendous amount of fun to do. He was on stage with C-3PO. I think it was the same person who worked with Bob, Chris Bartlett, which was an amazing experience. I actually got to dress him, put on his, or actually help him put on his C-3PO outfit, which was a lot of fun. And also did the Legoland, the Star Wars weekends where I met Chris. It was just amazing because we have several different Star Wars characters, and out of all of them, there were only 2 lines. One was for R2 and the other one was for Darth Vader. I think we had a line of at least 20 families just take pictures with them.
Don't forget, you were the droid on Deal or No Deal, too.
Yeah, Deal or No Deal with Howie Mandel. We were there, actually I was there for like 12 hours. We did that show. When the show was over, I stayed an extra 30 minutes so the entire cast could take their photograph with R2-D2. It was absolutely amazing. I drove home, felt like I was driving home a celebrity. The whole time they said, "Thank you so much for bringing him." And I said, "Hey, it's not a big deal. You know, he's just going to go back home in the garage and he's going to get covered up, you know, with a sheet and for the next 3 months till the next event." But yeah, it was just a great experience, a lot of fun. And then we had something like 32 stormtroopers there and 32 slave Leias. So going on to the build, yeah, mine is also a wood frame. This one I actually took a metal frame and copied it. A friend of mine loaned it to me. And the pocket vent, it was something that, for whatever reason, none of the machinists wanted to make it. And one of the reasons was because it had to be rolled, so it had that nice curve to it. I've got a mill at home, so what I did is I went ahead and just milled it out of aluminum, and then I took a rubber sledgehammer and pounded it until it got that shape. And that's how I made it. And my legs are actually made out of aluminum, and you can also see the ankles attached there, and the ankle cylinders. One of the reasons why I decided to go with aluminum was simply because that's all that was available. And I just didn't really have the woodworking skills to make it out of wood, so that's what I went with. And these are booster covers that I decided to make them out of wood. One of the reasons is because they're getting painted blue, so that, you know, making them out of aluminum, something like that, to me, you know, wasn't economically a great idea, I guess. And yeah, I've got the aluminum skins also. These are laser etched. And then here's the body. I added the aluminum details, several of them CNC machined. Some of them I made myself. And then inside the electronics, this was very early when I started working on the electronics. For the dome rotation, the motor is up there near the top, and the servo that actually turns on the switches for this is in the lower left-hand corner, is the black thing. The servo turns in one direction, and it hits the switch. The switch turns on the motor goes in one direction, and then when you move the servo the other direction, turns off the switch, hits the second switch, turns the motor in the opposite direction. So it's basically sending a positive charge from one area to the other. And then up in the upper right-hand corner is that blue box there is a motor controller for the foot motors. And once you've got that installed, you're pretty much set. From there, you can add whatever electronics you want. Those motor controllers come with complete instructions, so step-by-step instructions, so it's not difficult to set up. And then here's a demonstration that a friend of mine, Mike Senna, had done for us, the R5 dome. Mike was actually the guy that I bumped into years ago. He did a convention, I think, oh boy, around 2002. I believe it was a comic convention in Anaheim. And he had the first rolling R2 that I'd ever seen, just blew me away. And then here's my version. I did basically the same thing. At the time, there really wasn't anything available for the R5, so it was completely scratch built. He's got a wood frame with styrene skins. And those skins, I had to hand cut those out. Nowadays, we've got a guy that actually does a laser jet, and he just cuts them out, and I always refer people to him if they want to build it, because it's a lot easier just to buy them rather than cut them all out. This picture's got a good example of the little box in the back. and then the panels that were cut out in the top. And then this is my photograph of him up on 2 legs finally. I was getting him ready for Celebration 3, and rather than build another R2 in a room full of about 35 R2s, I figured I'd build R5 so I have something a little bit different. And I really wanted to show off this picture because this is something that's, you know, you can get away with some economical ways of building these guys. In this case, I found a tissue box in Walmart right about 2001. At Christmas time, they had silver and gold boxes, and so I just cut it apart and made the little panels for the neck. And Todd.
Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about my build. Todd Baker, I'm from Tigard, so pretty close by as well. And I'm gonna go through a little bit, some of these things these guys have already talked about, so I'll just kind of skip past those. I also have the wood frame, very simple to do. The thing I liked about the wood frame is it allowed me a lot of flexibility, so it was easy to sand and, you know, notch out a few places where I needed to make adjustments. Also easy to attach things to. Here's a picture of my dome as I was working on it and getting it painted, and as Bob alluded to, there's a lot of sanding, a lot of polishing that goes into work. My droid's the one over on the very far left with the unrealistically shiny dome. There we go. Here are the dome panels. So unlike Cole, I wanted a whole bunch of little gadgets and opening panels that work intermittently. So I'll try to do a couple of tricks. Maybe they work, maybe they don't work. We'll find out. But he is definitely not robust, as Cole pointed out. It's here's the dome with all the panels opening. I had the advantage, so I'm one of the last builders in this thread for a reason, because I'm one of the last to come along. And so I had the advantage of looking at these guys and seeing how they did things. So I was able to avoid some of the pitfalls and created some new ones on my own. And one of the things I noticed is when Chris did his, he had glued a lot of the panels shut, but he also had cut them out and then glued them on. So if he ever wanted to, he could open it up. And I said, I'm just gonna go, I'm going for it. So I had a lot of extra time. You're always waiting for parts, waiting for things to happen. So what I did with my extra time is I worked on my dome and I just went all out and made all these opening panels. So most of them are being used at this point. Okay, here's a holo projector. Here's an example of a guy who created a very elaborate system for moving the holo projectors. So you can see they move around a little bit. And I built this system up, tried to implement it. It was quirky. It just didn't work that well. And Chris showed me an easier way, which is you just attach, instead of having all that stuff on the back there to move it in an X-Y axis, you just tie a screw to the middle of the back of the holo projector and you put an arm from a servo on it and move it that way. Way easier.
Screw and a coat hanger. That's all you really need.
Yeah, way, way easier. Here are the horseshoes and the legs in the background there being painted up. Mine are all wood. So I built mine with wood, much like Chris's, and a lot of sanding, a lot of Bondo. And here are all the opening panels. So all the panels open. Whenever he does his little tricks, you can see inside. We'll show you during the Q&A when you get a little closer. It's a little easier to see what's going on there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the electronics. I think 3 of us up here are running something called a Jedi system, so I'll talk a little bit about what goes into that. These are custom-built boards by some people on the club, and I'll just kind of talk around some of these electronics details, and I can answer any questions afterwards. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but there's a receiver module that you can see in the bottom left, and what it does, it takes the reception from the transmitter here, sends it over to the Jedi controller, which is the big board on the right. And hanging off of that controller is a very fragile part called the V-Music module. And that's where he gets his brain. So all of his memory, R2's memory, and all the songs and tricks and scripts that he knows are on a thumb drive, just a standard thumb drive. And a lot of trouble can come from that. So that V-Music module is very fragile. I think Chris has burned up 2.
Yeah, that's my only complaint with it. Is great, but this whole thing that you're looking at revolves around a $40 part that is horrible, you know. So if that $40 part gets fried by either, you know, noise isolation
Yeah.
stuff, you know, it'll short out, and you have a huge paperweight that you can't even roll around or anything. So that's one of the downsides to this.
Yeah, it's a very complex system, very flexible, very capable with scripting on our joystick controllers. So some of these guys you'll see up here on Vince's controller here, he's got buttons, 12 buttons, that allow him to just press those and they make the sound. For those of us running the Jedi system, you have to do a script to make it do a trick. Okay, so Chris, go ahead and give me a trick.
So like if we want to do a very specific, if you watch this R2 here, if we want to do a scream, I hold down a button and do a diagonal up, and it knows, oh, it wants to do this. Right? And there's certain sounds that we all have programmed on them, so if you want to actually interact with the kids, you know, they give them a hug, you want to be nice, like that. You know, I think there's a fart on here too. Hang on. Right? Nope, not that one. No, there, that one. And you have to always remember which direction is what. And then we just have a single button if you want a random sound. If it doesn't matter how you're interacting, you just hit it, and it'll just play one, it'll read that flash drive, and it'll play one of random 40-something tracks that we have on there.
So very powerful, very flexible, very complex. Okay, so mine are set up on either side of the frame, and so on the other side you can see some of the controllers. So these are the top one on the left is for the feet. You know, it's a 25-watt controller for the feet, and then on the on the right, top right, is the one for the dome, and that's what spins the dome. That's how I do it on mine. So Vincent has a very simple and robust system. This one's not too bad, but it was quirky to get it working. And by the way, for those of you in the room that don't know what heat sink paste is, learn about it. It's really important. I burned up one of my motor controllers by cleaning off some heat sink paste that I shouldn't have. Okay, let's skip ahead here. So this is the power. I'm running two 18 amp hour batteries in the bottom, one on each side for balance and weight as far down as I can. And then I use a rig runner for my fuse box. It's complete overkill, but it's very elegant and robust. And this is the inside of the charging bay door. So some of us have these installed, and you can come up and look at those afterwards. That's what it looks like. It just charges with the cigarette adapter. So I have a little trickle charger. Whenever I plug R2 in at night and put him to bed, I just plug the cigarette charger in there, and he charges up overnight. And then whenever my iPhone's running low, I plug my iPhone in there, and he gives me power back. It's like a bank. Okay, and this is a picture of R2 in the garage. One of the big moments for all of us is when our R2s take a first steps, so much like a newborn baby. Okay, other gadgets. So like Chris, I have some gadgets on the inside. I'll show you this one. This is the Lifeform scanner I just got working. So I'll see if he'll do it. Okay. So that's what his Lifeform scanner is. And that's basically just a powered antenna that I bought at Napa. And so, you know, the older cars, where you applied power to them, the antenna went up, and when you take power away, the antenna goes back down again. It's very simple. It's easy to implement in practice, but making it robust, as Cole pointed out, not as simple. And that's what it is. Okay, and then whenever he's done doing his little routine there, I script him out, and hopefully he goes away again. There he goes. Good job, R2. Okay.
How could you not want that, Cole?
Come on, Cole. You got to have that. So the next thing I'm working on, I'm on prototype number 5, I think, Chris. Is that where we're at?
Yep.
On the periscope. And I almost had it working, but it just, sometimes it goes up and sometimes it doesn't. So it keeps
Almost
jamming.
doesn't count.
Yeah, almost
Yeah.
doesn't work at all. If it works 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty happy, but 1 out of 10 doesn't cut it. So it's not inside the droid right now, but it's also powered by an antenna motor. And what you see on the left-hand side of that picture up there is a drawer slide. Sometimes it pays to go cheap, sometimes not. So spend the extra $3 and get the heavy-duty one when you're at Lowe's. And that's what I'm working on now, so I got to cut that thing up and see if that'll work. Hopefully 6 is the charm, not Heinz 57.
What I do is I wait for Todd to figure it all out and then just copy what he does.
Okay, there's one other trick. Do you want to show off the fire extinguisher, Chris, on yours?
Yeah, let's see if we can get that going. So one of the things that's really perfect is it's right at eye level for those kids. Eh? That's one of the cool things that we got there. All that is a can of compressed air, keyboard cleaner. And I didn't even know this until I did a little bit of research. If you hold that upside down and release the air, it actually comes out in a mist instead of just invisible air. Don't ask me the science about it, but it's cool. So I mounted one upside down in the dome, attached a heavy-duty servo to an aluminum rod that'll actually, once the servo moves up, it pulls the rod and actually ignites the trigger, and then,
When the safety's off.
yeah. We can see.
That was actually a Senna invention, if I remember. I copied it from him.
Yep. And that's what's so good about this club is that somebody will find something really cool, and then we all just network together, and it's like you don't really steal it, you just steal it. You know, stealing's okay in the group.
Okay, I'm gonna skip past these slides. If you visit us out at the table, I'll pull my R5 dome out. There are a lot of different droids you see in the films and the movies, and so there's my R2-D2 dome that I'm working on right now, trying to get that to work because I want to have an alternate because it's tough whenever you're at an event to have two R2s running around. It just doesn't work that way. So we try to do it since we attend a lot of the same events. We have an R5 D4, I have another R5, and then Chris will run his R2. So we can all be driving around at the same time. Okay. Bob?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We're gonna, thank you. We got about 7 minutes. We can hang around up here if you want to kind of look at them and talk to us, and then otherwise we'll be back behind the Batmobile the rest of the day. So thanks for coming.
Yep.
Thank you.